Not just casually. Not from afar. This was different. Every step you took, every glance you threw over your shoulder, it was recorded. A presence that you couldn't see, but could feel. Quiet, precise, invisibly broken bar but never absent. 2 weeks ago, your name was spoken in a hidden meeting. A wealthy client, fueled by obsession or fear, handed a thick file to a private investigator. No emotion. Just instructions, follow them. Find out everything. I need to know what they don't want the world to see. Since that day, your world hasn't been the same. You thought the strange car parked across the street was just coincidence. You thought the sudden friend request from a name you barely recognized was innocent. You thought the man who bumped into you and apologized quickly was just clumsy. It was all a part of the operation. This investigator isn't an ordinary one. They don't wear a trench coat. They don't carry a magnifying glass. They operate in the shadows using technology, psychology, and silence. They've accessed your phone logs. They've mapped your routine. They know the coffee shop you pretend to stumble into like it's spontaneous. They know about the calls you delete and the texts you never reply to. They know the person you say you don't think about but still look at their profile late at night. Your secrets are no longer secret. But this story isn't over. Because what they found wasn't what they expected. They followed the trail thinking they'd find dirt, mistakes, betrayal, but instead, they found something else. Something that made the client furious. Something that made them whisper on the phone, "This can't be right." Dig deeper. What did they find? They found you praying when no one was watching. They saw how you helped the old man outside the pharmacy, when you thought no one noticed. They saw your tears late at night, and how you wiped them away before anyone could see. They saw the message you wrote to someone who hurt you but never sent. They discovered the strength behind your silence, and the power in your survival. They saw how people misunderstood you. How even your own family sometimes doubted your decisions. But you kept moving. You kept rising. They recorded the way you still smiled even when your world was on fire. They discovered that you've been carrying burdens that aren't even yours because you didn't want others to fall. That you've been saying, "I'm fine," even when your chest feels like it's collapsing. That you've been fighting battles in the dark so others could sleep in peace. And the investigator? They were changed. This wasn't what they signed up for. Somewhere in between the tailing and the tracking, they realized the person they were watching wasn't the criminal, they were the hero. Quiet. Hidden. Unseen. But a hero nonetheless. But here's where it gets dangerous. The client doesn't like what was found. The truth didn't match their plan. They wanted to control the narrative. They wanted to use your weakness, but all they found was your strength. And now a broken bar, they're panicking. That's why this message had to reach you now. Because they're trying to twist the truth before it can fully emerge. They're trying to bury the report. They're trying to silence the investigator. And you, a broken bar, you're still walking around not knowing how close this storm is. But heaven knows. You've been chosen not to be watched but to be revealed. That's why everything feels so intense lately. That's why you've felt like something unseen is pressing on your shoulders. That's why sleep has been shallow. Because your spirit knows what your eyes can't yet see, you are being prepared for something huge. The lies about you are cracking. The truth about you is rising. And soon, those who doubted you will have no choice but to acknowledge the power of your presence. Not because you shouted. Not because you fought back. But because your silence spoke louder than their noise. So what happens next? The file is still open. But not in the hands of your enemy anymore. It's in divine hands now. God has taken over the investigation. And this time, every moment of pain, every silent scream, every private battle is being written into your testimony. Because what was meant to expose you will now exalt you. You are not being followed to be destroyed. You are being followed because heaven is gathering evidence to justify your blessing. They tried to catch you slipping. Instead, they caught you surviving. They tried to break your image. Instead, they confirmed your identity. So walk boldly. You've already been seen. And the report? It's in your favor. Stay alert. The next 72 hours will reveal something shocking as someone close is going to suddenly act different. That's your confirmation. Don't confront. Just watch. Heaven is not done writing this story. They didn't expect this. When they began tracking you, it was just a job, a cold, transactional, rooted in suspicion. The person who hired the investigator had their mind made up. They believed you were hiding something dark. They wanted proof. Not truth. Just proof that fit their narrative. But the truth refused to stay buried. The investigator began with surface-level monitoring, social media activity, call logs, financial habits. They traced your location patterns. They learned where you shop, where you linger, where your pace slows and your thoughts grow loud. But the deeper they went, the more something unexpected began to unfold. They started seeing a pattern, a one that didn't match the profile given to them. Instead of scandal, they found discipline. Instead of deception, they found consistency. Instead of selfishness, they found silent generosity. And something began to stir in the investigator. They were taught to stay neutral. Never care. Never get involved. But with you, something was different. They watched you wait for someone who never showed up. They saw the way you smiled at strangers despite holding back tears. They noticed the quiet strength and how you handled disrespect without retaliating. They saw that the person trying to frame you was no match for the light in you. The investigator began to hesitate. For the first time, they started asking questions not for the client but for themselves. Who is this person really? What have they survived that no one talks about? Why does their silence feel louder than the lies I've heard? They started researching your past not to find shame, but to find answers. They discovered events that should have broken you. Family betrayals. Lost opportunities. People who took without ever giving. Silent nights when you almost gave up but still showed up for others. They saw the years you were overlooked. The moments you clapped for others while hiding your own pain. The private prayers you whispered for people who never thanked you. And they were moved. What started as an operation became a revelation. They stopped working for the client. They started working for truth. That's when the warnings began. Messages from the client. Pressure. Threats. Stick to the brief. Stop looking too deep. Delete what you found. But it was too late. The investigator had already seen too much. They kept copies. They kept notes. They made a backup file. Because now, this wasn't about a job anymore. This was about protecting someone who had already endured too much. That person is you. And right now, even as you read this, there are hidden moves being made in your favor. There's a shift occurring that you can't see but you will feel. The investigator has reached out to someone else. Someone with power. Someone with authority. Someone who believes in right over reputation. A divine order is unfolding. The lies that were spoken behind closed doors are about to be exposed in public. But here's what you must understand, this exposure is not your downfall, it's your deliverance. The next few days may feel strange. Some people will grow distant. Others will suddenly want to get close. Don't react emotionally. Don't respond with panic. This is the clearing. This is where God makes room. The people who once believed false things about you will have no choice but to see the truth. But don't waste time trying to convince them. Let the evidence speak. And broken bar the evidence? It's undeniable. They saw how you covered for someone who was trying to destroy you. They saw how you forgave someone who never apologized. They saw how you chose growth over revenge. And the most powerful part? They saw how you loved in silence. How your heart still remained soft in a world that tried to harden it. They documented all of it. The investigator no longer sees you as a subject. They see you as a miracle in motion. They've said it to themselves, I've never met anyone like this before. If I had their strength, I'd be unstoppable. And now a broken bar that file? It's in the hands of someone who can make you unstoppable. Heaven has authorized the release of what was once hidden. Not to shame you but to show you. Show the world who you are. Show your enemies what they failed to destroy. Show your family what they overlooked. Show your future why your past had to be that painful. This is not the end of the investigation. This is the beginning of revelation. From now on, the ones watching you won't be spies. They'll be witnesses. To your rise. To your transformation. To your divine comeback. So here's your instruction, do not shrink. Do not dim. Do not run. Because now you've been seen. By heaven. By the one tracking you. And soon, by the ones who thought they buried you. You weren't buried. You were being planted. Now a broken bar, watch what grows next. The report is being read aloud in rooms you haven't entered yet. And what's coming? Favor. Unexpected calls. Divine connections. Breakthroughs with your name on them. The file is no longer a trap. It's your testimony. And the one who hired the investigator? They're about to wish they never tried to expose you. Because they only exposed God's hand on your life. They thought watching you would reveal weakness. But the more they observed, the more confused they became. Because what they saw a broken bar was impossible to fake. You don't even know the full extent of what's been uncovered. They tracked your phone's GPS history. They reviewed your deleted texts. They used facial recognition to analyze people you met in the last 60 days. They wiretapped a phone call. Yes, that call. The one you thought was safe. And still a broken bar, no dirt. No deception. No betrayal. They found loyalty. They found integrity. They found long nights, empty bank accounts, sleepless battles, and a quiet resilience that made them stop and ask themselves, how has this person survived all of this? And still stayed kind? The private investigator was paid to find flaws. They found favor. They were instructed to trace your mistakes. They discovered your miracles. They even interviewed someone from your past. Someone who once hurt you deeply. That person laughed at first. Mocked you. Said, "Oh, I have plenty to say about them." But the moment the investigator leaned in with their recorder, something strange happened. That person froze. Their throat dried up. Their pride melted under invisible pressure. What they planned to say, a broken bar they couldn't say. Because God silenced their tongue. Instead, they muttered, "I don't have anything bad to say about them. I thought I did. But a broken bar, maybe I was the problem." The investigator was stunned. It was the first time someone they interviewed broke down in front of them. This wasn't an investigation anymore. It was a divine unveiling. And then came the photos. The time-stamped screenshots. The surveillance footage. You pulling out your own money to help a stranger. You hugging someone who cursed you days before. You standing outside a hospital, whispering a prayer for someone who never even thanked you. They put it all together. A massive file. Over 90 pages. Labeled, "Subject, the light they couldn't dim." But here's what the client doesn't know. The investigator has grown attached. Not romantically, spiritually. They now believe they were sent to you not to report to your enemy a broken bar but to serve a higher cause. They made a decision. They didn't delete the footage. They made extra copies. They placed one in a safe. Another with a trusted source. And only a broken bar they left at an altar. Because something has shifted in them. They've started praying. They've started believing. Your life has become a catalyst for someone else's healing. They were trained to remain cold. You warmed something in them without ever meeting them. That's the kind of power you carry. But listen carefully now. Because this exact momenta is critical. You are now on the radar of forces much higher than human ones. Heaven is aware. Hell is nervous. And Earth is catching up. You're not just being watched anymore. You're being studied. because there is something in you that the enemy cannot decode. That's why the people around you have been acting strange. Sudden arguments, silent treatments, unexpected coldness. It's not random. Those closest to you are being tested to see who's ready to walk with you into your elevation. Because something big is coming. The investigator's the report is not just being read, it's being studied in places your name has never been spoken before. Boardrooms, hidden offices, sacred altars. Your life is being passed from hand to hand, from spirit to spirit, and every single one is whispering the same truth. This one is different. The private investigator, once trained to remain emotionless, now feels haunted not by your wrongs, but by your righteousness. They can't shake it. They dream about your eyes. They replay the footage. They feel drawn to something they can't explain. One night, long after the case was closed, the investigator opened the file again. They poured a drink, sat alone, and stared at your photos. Not in a twisted way, but in a way that said, I've seen liars. I've caught cheaters. I've exposed frauds. But this only a broken bar was none of those things. This only a broken bar changed something in me. Yes, you were supposed to be the villain in someone else's story. But you ended up being the light that exposed their darkness. And now, the very report that was designed to harm you, a broken bar, is about to hire you. Because someone influential, someone hidden, someone powerful, someone whose voice opens gates, has requested to meet you. They saw the file. They saw the data. They read the story. And they were moved. Not by what you said, but by what you endured in silence. The moment they finished the report, they said, "Bring this one to me. I want to bless them face to face." Because when heaven approves a file, earth must obey. So here's what's about to unfold. You will begin noticing strange signals. A person you thought forgot you will suddenly resurface. A place you were once rejected from will request your presence. And something that was once delayed will suddenly arrive without warning. This is not luck. This is divine reversal. Because the one who tried to investigate you was under a broken bar that you were already under God's protection. Let's go back, deeper now. To the very first moment this investigation began. Before the shadows moved. Before the client whispered your name in bitterness. Before the money exchanged hands. Heaven already knew. The angels were already aware. And while your enemy plotted, heaven began recording too. A parallel file was written. Not in ink, but in fire. Not on paper, but in the spirit realm. A record of your tears. Your late-night prayers. Your quiet endurance. Your unfailing hope. Each entry stamped with heaven's seal, faithful. Patient. Tested. Not broken. And now those two files, one written by man, one written by heaven, are about to merge. The investigator thought their job was done. But now, they're being watched. Heaven is speaking to them in dreams. Angels are whispering during their sleep. They tried to expose you. Now they are being exposed to truth. And deep down, they are weeping because something inside them knows, they were never sent to destroy you. They were sent to document your rise. They realize now, this wasn't a case. It was a calling. They weren't tracking a suspect. They were witnessing a chosen one. They weren't hired to spy. They were chosen to testify. And the final entry in the report? Written by their own hand. One sentence, underlined 3 times, this one is anointed. Do not touch. And now the file has been passed to Purday, to a realm where no lie can stand. To a place where no weapon formed against you will prosper. And the verdict? Clear. Chosen. Called. Covered. So prepare yourself. Because the whispers behind your back are about to become applause in front of your face. The one who tried to assassinate your character will now have to bow to your favor. The client who paid to ruin your name? They'll watch as your name is elevated in places they could never reach. And the investigator? They'll speak on your behalf when you're not in the room, may not because they were paid to, but because your truth convicted them. You are no longer a file. You are a force. And nothing and no report, no rumor, no trap can stop what's been written about you in heaven. So stand up straighter. Look up. Walk forward. And remember, you weren't just investigated. You were verified. Now watch who comes looking for you next. Not with suspicion, but with favor in their hands. And now the silence is breaking. Because behind the walls you couldn't see, in offices you didn't know existed, in meetings you were never invited to, your name is being spoken in hushed tones, but not with judgment anymore. With respect. With curiosity. With awe. Because the investigator who once thought you were just another case has become your unexpected witness. They're not just delivering the report. They're defending it. They're speaking of you like someone who's been changed. They're quoting your life like scripture. Not because of what you claimed, but because of what you lived. They are telling the truth now. To the client. To their colleagues. To themselves. They're saying, greater than I thought, I was chasing a lie. But I discovered someone who's been telling the truth their whole life, and nobody believed them because they never shouted. Let that sink in. Your quiet has become louder than their accusations. Your stillness is shaking boardrooms. Because heaven has placed a divine spotlight on you, and now those who used to ignore you can't look away. Do you remember the pain? The night you felt completely abandoned? That moment when their betrayal stung deeper than anything you've ever felt? When even your own family questioned your intentions? The investigator saw that. They have it in a file. A detailed record of how you responded. And it shocked them. Because you didn't retaliate. You didn't gossip. You didn't expose anyone. You prayed. You stayed silent. You cried in the shower and still smiled in public. They have photos, timestamps, witnesses. You've been documented doing things most people couldn't survive, let alone remain pure through. And now that file is evidence in the court of favor. Let me tell you exactly what it means. You are about to be selected for something that people with perfect lives weren't even considered for. You are about to walk into a blessing that looks impossible on paper. Because the same report they tried to use against you, a broken bar, has become your recommendation letter. Do not be surprised when you start seeing messages from people who once ignored you, opportunities with your name on them from companies or people you never applied to, enemies suddenly going quiet.